Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Today is Sunday, May 22nd, 2022, and we have got a lot to cover in today's video. There are a number of developments over the past several days in the global economy, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell you it's not looking good, but let's go ahead and just dig into what's happening here. First story I want to cover is Argentina moving closer to joining the BRICS nations. Now, if you're not familiar with that acronym, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, I don't know how they're going to amend that acronym if they get Argentina into the group, but we're seeing that Argentina is joining the BRICS nations' new development bank and developing much stronger ties with these nations. And this is just a continuation of that trend of deglobalization, de-dollarization that we have been seeing over the past several months as nations around the world look for alternatives to the Western financial system and to dollars as a reserve currency. And, it makes sense. They saw what we did to Russia with the sanctions, and they see what happens if you run awry of the West. So clearly they're going to want to have a plan B, some other alternative, and that's what we're seeing here with Argentina developing closer ties with these nations. Now, in that same vein, this is a headline that we got on Friday from Bloomberg. Ruble hits 5-year high as gas buyers bend to Putin's will. And Friday was the deadline for a number of these contracts where EU buyers are purchasing Russian natural gas, and Putin is demanding that these payments be made in rubles. And what we saw in the days and weeks leading up to this deadline was quite a bit of ambiguity on the part of EU leadership, some of them seeming to indicate that this would violate sanctions against Russia, others like Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi saying that it was acceptable and didn't violate sanctions. But at the end of the day, it looks like the pragmatists and the realists are going to win out, and they are going to make these payments in rubles, or technically they're making payments in euros or dollars to these Gazprom bank accounts where they then get converted into rubles. So basically they're buying rubles to buy gas. And this is lending quite a bit of support to the Russian currency. We can see that on this chart here, this is the year-to-date chart of the Russian ruble compared to the US dollar. And back in March, when the sanctions kicked off, we saw a huge decline in the price of the ruble. Back on March 10th, you could buy 138 rubles for $1. Well, now, with the recent developments with this sort of Petro Ruble arrangement that Putin has developed, we are seeing now, today, you can buy 61.75 rubles for $1. So they have recovered all of those losses and then some in the Russian currency. And it makes sense. This is a good way for Russia to prop up the value of their currency. It's just like the petrodollar. We have propped up the value of the dollar around the world for the past 50 years by striking deals with energy producers like Saudi Arabia to only sell their oil and energy products in dollars. And that creates this insatiable demand for greenbacks around the world, where countries go and buy them before they buy oil. And now we're seeing Russia pull the same tricks. And this is probably just the beginning, because it seems like the EU is capitulating on this terms. And I think that this is going to embolden Putin to continue these attacks against the dollar. And Putin kind of has Europe where he wants them, because the EU depends on Russia for about 40% of its natural gas supply. And, they've already shown that they're willing to cut off gas to countries that won't pay in rubles. And I got to tell you, if you cut off 40% of the gas supply to the EU, you're not going to see a 40% increase in prices. That's not how that works. If you cut off 40% of their gas supply, that is going to create a huge spike in the price, maybe 5x, 10x, something like that, as the remaining gas supply gets bid up by desperate buyers. And that could absolutely lead to a significant crisis. And it wouldn't just be in the EU. The US is just going to start exporting increasing amounts of energy to the EU if that happens, because the prices there will be so high, and so prices will go up in the US as well. But it looks like that's not what we're going to see for now. It looks like everybody is just going to go ahead and pay in rubles, at least for the time being. But that doesn't mean that an energy crisis is off the table, because check out this headline: Israel military exercise to simulate attack on Iranian nuclear targets. Now we are seeing that at the end of May, Israel is going to begin these war games where they're simulating attacks on Iran. They're saying that Iran is only weeks away from having enough nuclear material to make a weapon. And, I feel like we've heard that before, but this is clearly being viewed as a threat by Israel. And notably, the U.S. is going to be participating in these drills. U.S. refuelers are going to take part, and I guess they'll be refueling Israel planes, the ones who would ostensibly be conducting these airstrikes. Now, the reason this is important, because if this escalates into some kind of a conflict between Israel and Iran, and say the U.S. gets drawn in, but even if we don't get drawn in, this is absolutely going to trigger a massive energy crisis. Iran can shut down the Straits of Hormuz if they need to, and that probably would be their game plan in a war, and that will trigger a massive spike up in the price of crude oil and energy, as a significant portion of world energy flows through those straits. So, hopefully this isn't going to develop into anything more significant. Hopefully it will just be a drill, but it is definitely something to keep your eye on. I know everybody right now is focused on Ukraine and Russia, and maybe also Taiwan and China, but this is another very important hotspot in geopolitical tensions that could have dramatic implications for energy prices if it heats up more. And if we do see a huge spike up in the price of energy, that is going to be very negative for the U.S. economy, which is already possibly heading into recession. But even if we don't see this heat up, even if there's not an energy crisis, looks like the economy is going to be heading into recession anyway. We've got the Wall Street Journal reporting a few days ago that more subprime borrowers are missing loan payments, and these are borrowers with limited or troubled credit history. They're defaulting on credit cards, car loans, and personal loans at an elevated rate. These consumers with less than great credit scores in the U.S., they're sort of like the canaries in the coal mine, because, they're the people without an emergency fund. They're the people with high levels of debt. So when economic hard times begin, they are the first people to really begin to suffer. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So this may be a sign of things to come. And it's not just the economy. We've also got this news of monkeypox now. So, all the other negativity aside, you've got war, you've got rising energy prices, you've got a global food crisis, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But now we've also got this monkeypox virus showing up around the world. There's more than 80 confirmed cases now. Israel and Switzerland, the latest countries to confirm cases. Total number of nations reporting outbreaks has risen to 14. Now, this is a pretty nasty virus. It's related to smallpox, not as virulent or deadly as that one, but it does have a significantly higher fatality rate than the virus we've been dealing with, over the past couple of years. Something like 1 in 10 people who contract this die. At least that's based on the information that we've observed from African outbreaks in the past. Now, maybe with, Western medical care, we could get that number a little bit better. The good news is this stuff isn't as contagious as the other virus that we've been dealing with. You really have to get in close contact with people to see this spread. But, we're just one mutation away from some kind of another devastating virus. And if you think that the one we've been dealing with over the past 2 years was nasty with its relatively low mortality rate, if you get something with a 10% mortality rate breaking out in the West, people are going to absolutely panic. And, kind of rightfully so, I think. Now, it doesn't look like this is going to turn into a global pandemic just yet, but, as we've seen over the past couple years, that is absolutely a possibility and something to watch out for in this age of high population densities, international travel. The potential for that sort of thing is definitely there. So another thing to be keeping an eye on. And of course, the food crisis continuing to develop. The latest development in this is earlier this week, we saw Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey saying that he is helpless in the face of surging inflation. He doesn't have any more tricks to pull out of his hat, and the potential for rising global food prices could be apocalyptic. This is going to hurt the poor and the most vulnerable people around the world, as they're the individuals with the highest percentage of their income going towards food, and you're really going to see their purchasing power erode as these food prices rise. And this is something I've been covering on the channel for seems like quite some time now, but wheat prices are up, corn prices are up, fertilizer prices are up. Fertilizer is in shortage. We've got food riots breaking out around the world. Peru, Sri Lanka, Iran, a number of places seeing political instability as a result of rising food prices. And in my opinion, this food crisis is just getting started. There's lag time with food crises because when there's a fertilizer shortage, it's not like it affects the food that's on the market now. It's going to affect crop yields in the future, the crops that are not getting adequate supplies of fertilizer and that sort of thing. And, in the future is when you're going to see farmers and food producers passing along these increasing input costs to consumers. And so, this is another thing to watch out for. Now, I know this isn't a particularly cheery video, and if you stuck with me this far, I do want to say, In every crisis and in every negative situation, there is a seed of opportunity. Those of us who are getting prepared now, I think will be able to take advantage of those opportunities. And certainly, I'm not wishing for any of this stuff, but I'm just being real and observing what's going on around the world. I think it's going to get kind of ugly. I'm going to have some more positive videos coming out in the next week or two. We're going to be talking about some of the potential alternatives to the dollar. I think I'm going to be doing a video on platinum soon. Precious metal I have not talked about much. I've got a video on gold backs coming up, a really awesome alternative gold-based currency. So we're going to be showing you some of those. I'm also going to do some more videos about food preps, I think. So if you want to see that stuff, let me know in the comments below. If there's anything you guys would really like to see me touch on, please do let me know in the comments. And I do just want to say thank you very much to all of you who have been watching and tuning in. I know there's a lot of you who have been with me for months or years now. And some of you I know comment on every single video, it seems like. And gosh, I just cannot express my gratitude enough to those of you who participate in this community. If you guys weren't watching, I wouldn't be able to set aside the time to make these videos. And, it wouldn't really be rewarding for me, because my favorite part is hearing from you and hearing from everybody who views these videos. I think I have a really awesome audience out there. And, if you're one of those folks who does view and comment on every video, you know who you are. So thank you very much to you. I just want to say, stay safe, everybody. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on, but there is still time to get prepared. So don't let it get you down. Try to stay positive. Just take advantage of this time that we have, because even though things might be tight now and things might be tough, I think that these are going to be the good times when we're looking back on them over the next couple of years. Do what you can to get prepared now. Get into hard assets. Get some food on hand. And like I said, over the next week or two, I'm going to be putting out some more videos on ways you can get prepared. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button so you won't miss out on those. And thank you all very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, everybody. I'll catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.